In the heart of the Pacific Northwest, where the Snake River winds its way through the Palouse, lies the Lewis-Clark Valley, a region known for its serene beauty. This peaceful area, encompassing the twin cities of Lewiston, Idaho, and Clarkston, Washington, was forever changed between 1979 and 1982, when a series of brutal murders and unexplained disappearances brought with it a dark cloud over the landscape. The community's sense of security was shattered, replaced by a pervasive fear that gripped the valley, as residents realized their safety was no longer guaranteed. It became a living nightmare for the residents of the Lewis-Clark Valley, as a sinister presence lurked in the shadows. Decades later, these cases continue to haunt the memories of those left behind. Law enforcement now believes these crimes are interconnected, a theory that suggests a single monstrous figure is responsible for all of the terrible crimes. Join us as we look into the details of the case and the possible suspects for the Lewis-Clark Valley murders on Fireside Unsolved, Episode 93. On a seemingly ordinary day, April 28, 1979, Christina White was enjoying the Asotin County Fair in Asotin, Washington, with friends. As the day wore on, the young girl began to feel unwell from the heat, so she went to a nearby friend's house to call her mother. Christina and her mom spoke on the phone at approximately 2:30 p.m., and she advised Christina to rest at her friend's house and return home when she felt better, as their home was just blocks away. Christina never called her mother back, and her mother assumed she felt better after resting and had returned to the fair. When her mother arrived to bring her home from the fair at their scheduled meeting time, Christina was nowhere to be found, and as the sun began its descent across the quiet town, a sense of unease started to creep into the heart of Christina's family. Reaching out to Christina's friends from the fair, as well as classmates, they recalled seeing her heading towards her home earlier in the evening, between the hours of 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. She was riding her faithful 10-speed bicycle with its distinctive white basket as her only companion on the 500 block of 2nd Street. Weeks passed without any sign of Christina. Then, authorities made a discovery that offered a grim clue. Pieces of her schoolwork were found scattered in a field not far from where the fair took place. But there was no trace of her or her bicycle. 2 years later, in the summer of 1981, Kristin David was on the cusp of graduating from the University of Idaho, with degrees in both journalism and political science. A bright and ambitious young woman, Kristin had already secured a new job and was eager to move back to her family home in Lewiston, Idaho, and reunite with her loved ones. On June 26, 1981, Kristin set off on a familiar journey, a 32-mile bike ride from her campus residence in Moscow, Idaho, to her family's home in Lewiston. It was a trip she had made countless times before, yet this time, something went terribly wrong. As the hours passed and Kristin failed to arrive back home, a sense of dread began to settle over her family and friends. A young woman with a promising future had vanished, leaving behind a community gripped by fear and uncertainty. Then, on July 4, 1981, there was a horrific discovery as fishermen stumbled upon human remains along the riverbank, 6 miles west of Clarkston, Washington, along the Snake River. The following day, more body parts were found downstream. The remains were of Kristin David, meticulously wrapped in pages from local newspapers dated April 1981, and concealed within black plastic bags. The methodical nature of the disposal suggested a cold, calculated act of violence. There was no trace of Kristin's personal belongings, including her bicycle and clothing, and they have never been found. Multiple witnesses came forward with disturbing accounts of a man in a brown vehicle targeting women along Highway 95 on the day Kristin vanished, the same route Kristin would have taken on her bike ride to Lewiston. As these testimonies unfolded, a portrait of a dangerous individual began to take shape. The man's behavior was consistent and predatory, suggesting a calculated plan of attack. A little over a year later, the Lewis-Clark Valley was shattered once more, when on September 12, 1982, 2 young women disappeared. Christina Nelson, a vibrant 21-year-old with dreams of becoming an artist, and her stepsister Jacqueline Brandy Miller, an 18-year-old with a bright future ahead, were on a short walk from Nelson's apartment to the grocery store, followed by their shift at the Lewiston Civic Theater, where they both worked as janitors. Kristina left a note for her boyfriend promising a quick return, but Kristina nor Brandy were ever seen again. Over a year later, on March 19, 1984, a grim discovery was made. The remains of Kristina and Brandy were found in a desolate rural area, approximately 35 miles from their home in Lewiston, Idaho. The medical examiner's ruling was stark: homicide. The news sent shockwaves through the community, deepening the fear and uncertainty that had gripped the valley since the disappearances of Christina White and Kristin David. However, the date September 12, 1982, held more than the disappearances of two innocent young women. It took another life as well, with the disappearance of a third individual that evening, Stephen Pearsall. A 35-year-old janitor at the Lewiston Civic Theater, Stephen actually shared a unique connection with Kristina and Brandy, acting as a sort of big brother figure. Stephen's plans for that night were to do some laundry and clarinet practice at the theater. However, when morning arrived, he was nowhere to be found. His clarinet remained untouched, still at the theater, but his laundry was missing. An uncashed paycheck was still sitting at his residence and his car parked at a friend's house, which made it pretty clear this was a man with no intention of disappearing. Investigators initially explored the possibility of Stephen being involved in the women's disappearance, but the evidence pointed in a different direction. It seemed more likely that he was an innocent bystander who stumbled upon a horrifying scene, becoming a victim himself. As the years passed, the mystery surrounding the Lewis-Clark Valley murders deepened. The investigation opened, but with no new leads. Then in 1995, Lewiston police outlined a chilling new theory. They proposed that Kristina, Brandy, and Stephen were tragically murdered together within the Lewiston Civic Theater building by a fellow employee. This suspect was confirmed to have been present at the theater on the night of the trio's disappearance. In 2011, with the release of the documentary Confluence, a revelation emerged hidden within its frames. It was the identity of a man long hidden in the shadows of the Lewis-Clark Valley murders, Lance Jeffrey Voss. When questioned by authorities, Voss claimed to have been at the theater the evening of the disappearances of the three victims. He stated that he went out for pizza and then returned to the theater, sleeping on the couch until 4 a.m. Born in the gritty underbelly of Chicago in 1945, Voss traded the city's concrete jungle for the Navy in 1965. For 3 years, he traversed the vast expanse of the Pacific, his ships docking in the neon-lit havens of Hong Kong, the tropical paradise of Hawaii, and the bustling metropolises of Washington and California. A sinister chapter in Voss's life unfolded in the summer of 1972. The police received a call to the grounds of the Willow Glen Mortuary Chapel in San Jose, where the remains of two young women were being held. When they arrived, they found Lance Jeffrey Voss. In his possession was a flashlight, a camera, and a knife, an unholy trinity of tools. A window screen lay discarded, an intent that remained unclear to authorities. He was arrested and charged with burglary, but Voss escaped with a plea bargain, trading bars for a trespassing conviction. The puzzle deepened when it was discovered that the house Christina White vanished from belonged to Patricia Brennan, Voss's girlfriend. Voss admitted to police that he had seen Kristina the night she disappeared. As the search intensified, Voss, with a facade of concern, offered his assistance to Kristina's family in searching for her. It was discovered that the other victim, Kristin David, had previously worked at the theater as well, raising the chilling possibility that she may have crossed paths with the same individual suspected of murdering Kristina Nelson, Brandy Miller, and Stephen Pearsall. A Sutton County Sheriff's Office detective, Jackie Nichols, has dedicated her career to unraveling this complex puzzle. Boxes filled with evidence, a testament to countless hours poured into the cases. Yet, the roadblocks are formidable. In 2018, she reaffirmed the possibility that the 5 victims were bound by a single, sinister thread, a serial killer. But the darkness of the murders in the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley extended beyond the immediate area. She found 3 other unsolved cases that were eerily similar in the hometown of Lance Jeffrey Voss. One of these murders was on a sweltering August day in Chicago in 1963, when 8-year-old Diane Taylor was found brutally murdered. Her tiny body, bearing the horrific marks of violence, was discovered in an alley. The city of Chicago stood stunned as investigators pieced together the fragments of a young life stolen. And guess who was a resident of the neighborhood at the time, a graduate of Austin High School, and a counselor at Diane's YMCA camp? Lance Jeffrey Voss. His presence is either a haunting coincidence or something more sinister. Unfortunately, DNA analysis is not a possibility at this time. Because they've never been convicted of a crime, a felony-level crime, their DNA cannot be entered into any database, said Detective Nichols. But hope persists. The march of technology is relentless, and with it comes the promise of new possibilities. Detective Nichols holds on to the belief that one day, the truth will emerge and justice will be achieved for the victims. And when that day arrives, the ghosts of the past may finally find peace. If you have any information, no matter how small, that could help bring closure to these families, please reach out. You can call the FBI tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI. You can contact the Asotin County Sheriff's Office at 509-243-4717 or submit a tip online at tips.fbi.gov. Though decades have passed since these young lives were stolen, the search for justice continues. The families of the victims continue to seek answers, and law enforcement remains steadfast in their pursuit of the truth. Until the next time, we'll keep your seat warm for you on Fireside Unsolved. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards.